All right, we are live.
Yeah.
High quality sound system here.
That's real.
Welcome everybody to Hopportunity Investors, where brains, beer, and beauty collide. Well, welcome everybody, Hopportunity Investors 2021.
Woo!
All right. Guys, we've got Mr. Scott Gassner here joining us today. Thank you, sir. We're going to be talking about commercial, talk about some cool things he's doing, and just talk about getting this year started off right. So I've got Shawn over here in one of your corners, Shawn Bowen. I've got Cam here, and behind the scenes, we've got Ashley and Vanessa. They are part of what keeps this crew together and part of Hopportunity. And everybody joining us, thank you guys. Please jump in, throw out questions. This is about y'all. And yeah, so if you've never joined us before, I'll do my spiel I do every time. Hopportunity Investors is a real estate investment group. We talk about investing strategies. We talk about financing options and the implementation of those in Hampton Roads. And now kind of beyond that, but you know, we're really strong in Hampton Roads. And we bring in industry professionals, experts, and people who are, you know, putting their boots on the ground and doing stuff. And we have them come in and talk to us about how to make things work and how to invest in real estate. Normally, we like to do this in a live setting. We like to have our beers together and cling them together and, you know, do things like that. Networking is a huge part.
Like real life.
Yeah, like real life. Networking is a huge part of real estate, and therefore it's a huge part of Hopportunity. So whatever we can do in this virtual world to keep that going, we want to try to do that. But when we meet in person, I think that is one of the best things about this group. That is actually how I met Scott, right? I met you at Hopportunity Investment meeting. And, you know, that's what we want it to be about, meeting guys like Scott who can teach us something else that we don't know. Everybody's got something to offer. And if you're here, if you're new, even if you've never done a deal, you've probably got something to offer. And really, it's all about forming that network around you of different people that can help you with different things, and you can provide value to them. So guys, before we go any further, please join us for a toast. Raise your glasses. May your castle be secure and your cup overflowing. Bink! Yeah, so we survived 2020, guys. Great job. Victory. I'm super excited about 2021. This is going to be an incredible year. It's so like what's exciting to me is that every like time I think I know what's going on, I don't. Like there's some things that I'm like, okay, yeah, I was real smart there. And then other things I'm like, I just didn't even comprehend that this could ever be our reality, you know? And we've kind of been in that, and it's scary in one way, but in another way, it's kind of fun and interesting. And, you know, interest rates are like insanely low. And, you know, I know we've all been able to kind of benefit from that in ways that we probably weren't expecting to at the start of 2020. And I think it's things like that have really evolved our markets into, you know, new opportunities. And I think that's what the Hopportunity way is. We think of it as opportunities. And one of the first times I spoke with Scott, he said, you know, I remember we had coffee at that place down at the beach. I can't remember.
Yeah. Three ships.
Yeah.
Three ships. Yeah.
And, you know, Scott was imparting some wisdom on me. And he was just saying, you know, there's always a good market. You just have to, you know, find out where that is and how to go after it. And so that's something I've definitely taken from you, man. And in this last year, I mean, I think if you were planning on something in 2020, it probably wasn't what you expected, but hopefully you were able to make some twists and some turns and make it work for you. So without me just rambling on anymore, I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Shawn up there to kind of run through some logistics and help us out.
Awesome. Guys, thanks for joining us again. Again, like Alex said, we're done with 2020, we're into 2021 and starting new things, new year. So first, guys, if you would, and you're checking out your phones for a hot second, go to the YouTube page at Hopportunity and like us over there, subscribe, hit that bell so you can see when we hit these notifications. You can see all these videos. You can see some of our past stuff and then obviously all the new stuff, right? Tons and tons of, I won't say hours of videos over there for stuff we've done with meetings like these, right? Also, check us out at our Facebook page and give us a like over there and check us out so you can follow us. And then we can get you onto the private page and you can meet some of the people here in Hampton Roads and maybe some people beyond that. As always, I'm Shawn Bowen with Full Circle Investment Group. We are with wholesalingoutofthebox.com. Alex and I have been doing this for a long time. And we're coming on, what, 3 years, 4 years? Alex, 3 years.
Three.
So 3.5-ish. And
yeah,
guys, it started from just having a beer, and we started talking to real estate, and now we're here to this where hundreds of members have joined and tons of deals have been done and people have made great connections. So we appreciate you guys joining us. And if you ever need anything, feel free to reach out to any one of us here that we can try to help you. The big thing at Hopportunity is we focus on what is real. We are not pie in the sky idea guys, right? These are guys that are actually doing the business, know what they're talking about, and actually doing it. So that's what we pride ourselves on. So I'm not going to take up any more time. Again, I want to thank Ashley and Vanessa for always helping us because we wouldn't be able to do this without them. So thank you so much, ladies, for making this smoothly run in the background for us. But yeah, let's get right to Scott and Alex, go for it.
Scott Gassner, man. You know, I've enjoyed our time, you know, being able to talk about deals. I don't think we haven't actually closed one together yet, have we?
No, we haven't.
We've talked a lot about deals.
We talked a lot about when we started talking, which was probably just over a year ago. I was really interested in the Airbnb market in Hampton Roads because it was one of the most affordable places to get vacation homes. And you could throw them up on Airbnb and it was totally undiscovered. A year later, it's no longer the case, right? Because of COVID, everyone bought up those vacation homes. Everyone knows what Airbnb is now. And so, you know, just keep rolling on to the next thing. But yeah, what a difference a year can make.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And I think, you know, when I met Scott, I'll say I kind of realized that I could tell that he had, you know, basically you've lived off of your portfolio for, you know, that's your livelihood, right? Your real estate investing.
Yeah, I've been a full-time investor for 11 years.
Yeah, so that's been when I heard that, I was like, okay, this is what we're all, you know, kind of one of the goals a lot of us have. So I was kind of taking all that in and just, you know, a great, you know, just a lot of wealth of information there, but also just very approachable and non like in your face, like, hey man, I've done all this, like, you know. So you're always open to ideas and you're open to what people are doing in the local markets and stuff like that. And so I really respect that. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring you in because the attitude that you have with real estate.
And I love the Hampton Roads market. I think the Hampton Roads market is one of the best markets in the United States, mostly because it's relatively undiscovered by a lot of the big national investors. So I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, guys. If you're in the Hampton Roads area looking to invest, just stay creative. The riches are in the niches, right? And you can find it. You can find it's there.
Actually, riches in the niches.
So
the
yeah,
riches
man,
are in the niches.
Yeah, you know, we thank you for coming on here. I don't think there's anything else I have to say except for, man, do your thing and we'll listen and we'll pop in when we got some questions. But if you want to share us your story and, you know, some tips and tools that you might have, we would love it, man.
Okay. Yeah, that's, I'd love to. I'm a very open guy. So Cameron, if you don't mind pulling up this PowerPoint. My name is Scott Gassner. My company's 8 Square LLC. And what I want to do today is tell everyone kind of my story, how I got started in commercial real estate and how that changed over the 10 years I ran that portfolio, all the way up to the beginning of 2020 when I finally refinanced one of my original loans. And I'll let you guys be the arbiters, or just let me know do you think I did the right thing with my portfolio at the end? When you look at what I did over 10 years, was it the right thing to do, given COVID? And we'll see. So let's go to the first slide. I've always found this. Oh, sorry, the next slide, Cameron.
Just so everybody knows, Cameron Peters is our Peninsula guy. He runs the that side of the world on Hopportunity, so he's not just here for no reason.
And he's obviously better at with real estate investing than he is PowerPoint.
Is it frozen up?
Are you frozen there?
No, you got the next slide,
No,
Alex.
Alex, you're controlling this.
Oh, how did you put it on there? That's incredible.
Oh, there we go.
But it's cool. Throw me under the bus.
Hey,
We
got
love it. Ashley's just like behind the scenes, man. You guys are way too behind the scenes today.
Ashley just throw punched you.
This is one of the most significant quotes that I've ever read about business. It actually comes from Shakespeare, and that kind of shows you the timelessness of this kind of knowledge. So this is from Julius Caesar, Act 4, Scene 3. Brutus is speaking. He says, "There's a time in the affairs of men, which taken at the flood leads on to fortune. Omitted, all the voyage of their life is bound in the shallows and in miseries. On such a full sea are we now afloat, and we must take the current when it serves, or lose our ventures." And this quote has guided me when I was making business decisions. Actually, I started watching what other people were doing when they were making really wise business decisions, and I realized that this is really what they're doing. So let me just break it down, freshman level English style. What he's saying to me is that there's a tide, kind of like the business cycle or economic forces that happen among men, which if you take it at the extreme moments, it can lead you on to a fortune, to places that you can't go any other time. And if you're afraid to take that current at that time, if you're afraid to jump into the flood, then your life is going to be bound in the shallows, into the small wins, small losses, small stuff, and you'll never really get onto the big victories. And then he says, on such a full sea are we now afloat, and we must take the current when it serves. I think what that's saying is sometimes, the current's going to be what it is, and you got to kind of watch it and find your opportunity. And when it's there, you got to move. You can't just sit there waiting, or lose our ventures, or you'll never get there. So on to the next slide.
Dude, that's awesome, man. I'm pumped.
Yes. So just my story. I grew up in an entrepreneurial real estate family. My dad followed kind of the poor dad path. He got a PhD. He became a professor at a university, and he very quickly found that his salary was, really stuck at certain levels in between other professors. He couldn't dictate his own salary. He just got what he got. And so he started up his own company on the side. Initially, he was a consultant. He got a lot of money doing that. And then he moved on to real estate investing. And he became very successful. So while I was in grad school, I went and worked for my dad's real estate company. And I actually rewrote his accounting system using Microsoft Excel and Microsoft Word. And I didn't really enjoy the real estate field, honestly. But man, there's a lot of money there. I was pretty impressed by that. But I figured I could do just as well my own way. So I went into the corporate world. I was working for these big international banks for a while. But pretty soon I found I was stuck in the same situation with a salary that changed, 2 or 3% per year, fighting for promotions with other people. Other people I didn't even know were controlling my salary, controlling who got hired. I really didn't have much to do with it. And even when we were successful, there was always a chance that the company would be downsizing, people get fired. And so I think I found out the same thing my dad found, which is it's just better to be on your own feet. And so in 2008, I was working this corporate job. There's a big economic crash happening. I knew that there was downsizing happening. Didn't matter how good I was at my job. I was probably going to get the axe. And so I started looking around for my current, right? My tide in that flood. How am I going to grab onto this opportunity? And it just so happened that at the same time, my dad was really sick of the real estate world and wanted to retire. So he sold me his entire company. I basically bought my father's entire life's work at the age of 34. He turned it over to me. He wanted to retire. And within a month, he moved to Florida, and I moved to DC from Oregon. And my wife and I both quit our jobs. We moved across the country. My wife had never seen these strip centers or anything. We bought 5 of them, and we just gave up everything and went. And it was one of the best decisions of my life.
Awesome. That is cool.
So moving on. What I want to talk to you guys about a little bit today, or what makes me a little different, is that I did start with shopping centers, which is commercial real estate. So I know a lot of you guys are mostly dealing with single family homes. So I'm going to kind of shed some light, some things I've learned in the commercial field. Really, the difference between residential and commercial real estate has to do with the use of the real estate. Or you might think of it as like a type of real estate. Retail is commercial, office, warehouse. Multifamily, when it's over 10 units, is considered commercial. And special uses, things like airports, churches, those kinds of things, also commercial. And so basically, it's any kind of real estate that is residences of more than 10 units is generally considered commercial. And the other thing about it is it almost always has to have scale. Most commercial loans, they're not going to be willing to loan you anything under $1 million. So if you're looking at buying a corner store for like 250 grand, okay, it's still commercial, but that's about the smallest commercial you're going to find. Most commercial is going to be multi-million-dollar buildings. The other thing you have to know is because you're dealing with businesses, there's a lot more regulation. These business owners are going to be setting up a space where members of the public are going to come and expect to receive some kind of service or buy a product or something like that. And so there's all kinds of regulation about how they set up their commercial space, whether or not they're licensed to operate. And for instance, if they're a restaurant or something, they have to meet certain health codes. They have to have fire exits and that kind of stuff. Another thing to know about commercial is that credit is totally different. Usually when you're buying a house, you're getting an agency loan from Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae or something like that. And there is agency debt in commercial, but it's mostly around multifamily buildings. If you're buying multifamily apartments, you can still get agency debt from Freddie Mac. But also, if you're doing like building a new construction small business, like a gas station or oil change place, the Small Business Association might give you a loan. And that's also agency debt. It's very low rates, really beautiful stuff. But most of the time, if you have like a shopping center and you need to get a loan, you're going to be borrowing from either a private bank, a hedge fund, or an insurance company. And then there's some really exotic stuff out there where you could be getting into like a CMBS, commercial mortgage-backed security, where your rate is based on LIBOR or something kind of weird. So that kind of stuff is out there too. And those kinds of CMBS loans are traded all over the globe. So they're just generated here, and you never know. Someone in Dubai could own that thing, or a million people could each own a slice of it. You never know. But another interesting thing about it is that you can get non-recourse debt. Non-recourse means that if you fail to make your mortgage payment, the lender's going to come after the building, and there's no personal guarantee. So as the owner, you don't have to worry about the mortgage company coming after you if they foreclose. They just come after the building. So it is the building, after all, in commercial loans that justifies the loan, not the borrower. And so it's fairly typical, especially when you're at scale, to have non-recourse debt where you really have no concern about losing your own money. And the last thing I'll say is that there's really no safety net. When you're buying single family homes, you have a lot of agents, real estate agents helping you out. You have people giving you home inspections. There's a lot of laws around what can and can't happen. Once you get into commercial, that's all off. Any kind of deal you make, you have to watch your own backside. And so you really need attorneys to look at everything. If you're going to make a purchase agreement to purchase commercial real estate, you're going to have an attorney constructing a document for you individually that you will then pass to the seller, and their attorney will look at it, and the two of you will agree on a purchase agreement through attorneys. And everything's negotiable. So let's move on. Okay, self-managing.
Scott, can I ask you a question?
Self-manage. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about that last slide?
Yeah.
So I'm interested to know from your perspective, purchasing commercial real estate, whether the regulations specifically, how heavy does that weigh, if any, on your decision to buy a certain space over a different space? For example, like you mentioned, oil change place, or something that has a lot of hazardous waste, a lot of regulations and things like that, versus a retail clothing store. Obviously, that's night and day. With you as the investor, as the purchaser, not down in the weeds, but are these your concerns when you're doing due diligence or no?
Absolutely. You cannot get a commercial loan without doing environmental phase 1.
Okay.
Which means they're going to come out and just check for kind of basic stuff. They're going to look at the history of the building and see if there's any reason to be concerned. If they find anything, the bank is going to require an environmental phase 2, which is going to take another 60 days. It's going to be a more expensive, invasive thing where they start doing air samples, soil samples, that kind of thing. There are all kinds of things that the EPA is going to be concerned about. But then every state you're doing business in has their own EPA. So that's 2 layers of regulation just on environmental protection. But to answer your question, I knew a guy who bought a small corner retail center that had been dark. It had no tenants in it for years. He bought it and tried to put it in his clothing store, and the county shut him down right away. Why? Because the square footage that he used for his retail store required a certain number of parking spaces. And this building only had 5 parking spaces. So it wasn't enough parking spaces for him to have a retail use. And so he couldn't use it for retail. He went through all the different uses. He couldn't figure out what he could use it for. Nothing really. And so based on regulation, even though the space was there, he couldn't put in a store. He couldn't put in anything. He had to redevelop.
Wow.
Damn.
Yeah. So
That's
Yeah.
regulation is no joke. It is no joke.
And the cities determine, which way they're going to go, and they're hard to switch directions if they're in that direction.
There'll be a ratio of square feet to parking. There'll be certain businesses that have to be far away from churches and that kind of stuff. Oh, wow. Should I answer this question from our side?
Yeah, get your crystal ball. Let's hear it.
Hold on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's going to be something, but I don't think it's going to be that bad. I have a bunch of single family homes as well, and I haven't had that much delinquency. So I think there'll be a certain number of people, but I think most landlords would rather work it out if they have the opportunity. So for those people who have just had income disruptions, I think landlords try to work it out. But for those people who have been gaming the system, they're all going to get evicted at once, and they're going to have a hard time finding something new. Because guess what? We all check references. So I think there'll be a lack of demand of qualified good credit demand for a little while. But in the end, I'm still at 95% collections, so I'm not that worried about it.
Nice.
All right. You knew it was going to come up.
The average cap rate for commercial in Chesapeake, I don't know Chesapeake that well, and there's a lot of different kinds of commercial. I bet if you're looking for office space, it's pretty darn high. But you're looking for high-end multifamily, good luck. So I'd say it depends, and you just figure out what works for you, and then see where you can find it.
Ryan, write us a little more specific. What are you looking for? Like multifamily versus like he was saying, commercial. Like he might be able to give you a little bit more talk to it.
And we can jump on that a little bit later too.
Yeah, we'll come back to it for sure.
Scott can keep rolling.
Let me keep zooming because I don't want to have everyone hanging out all night, although it is fun to drink beer. So here's the problem. Here's the thing about jumping into commercial real estate when you have no experience in real estate, is that everyone else who has a shopping center, they have a leasing agent that they're paying for, who's a professional leasing agent. It's all they do. And so they're going to be a lot better at attracting clients than you are. They're going to have contractors that they know that they work with. They might be big enough to have their own on-site facilities management. They might have professional bookkeepers and all this stuff. And the other thing you notice is that the moment you mention the word commercial to a contractor is that the price goes up by 50 to 100%. Now, why is that? Well, number one, they need a special license if they're going to work in a commercial space. A lot of people can be, licensed to do electric in, residences, but if you want to do commercial, you need a second license or a higher end license. Plumbing underneath a commercial shopping center is just a way bigger scale, a totally different thing that you can't even work on it as a normal residential plumber. And so suddenly you're not only do you need a different license, a different permit, but also the equipment that you're using might have to be specialized. The kinds of pipes and stuff you're installing may be specialized. And so the materials themselves cost more. The scale is just a lot bigger. And so just taking that step, all of a sudden your costs are going to go way up for all the same stuff. And so kind of my scheme that helped me to survive as a small cap retail guy when I was just starting out on my own was to just do everything yourself. Because guess what? If you're not hiring anybody, no one needs a license. So if you have a vacant unit that you need to empty out, you just hire a dumpster and you just throw in some dirty clothes and you go do it yourself. When you need to do leasing, you look at the standard leases that you were handed when you purchased the retail center. You type them into Word so you can edit them yourself, and then you just do your own attorney work. I'm not a licensed attorney when I say that, but it's a great way to save money. You do your own leasing, you do your own advertising. Everyone else is going to have bigger, better, faster. But when it comes to real estate, location matters. And the people who are looking for a space will find you with just a roadside. There's not that much retail out there. And so you can do it yourself. And guess what? Those people who are paying leasing agents, they pay 6% for that. People who are paying, someone to go do all that work for them, it's a lot more expensive than sweat equity. So you can do it as long as you just do it yourself. And that's the way to survive when you're small. Once you get bigger, you can hire help. And I certainly did after a few years. But the first few years, man, I was cleaning up trash dumps in my parking lot, throwing it in the back of my truck. What else is I going to do? And I recommend it. Just get gritty. You can do it.
That's awesome, man. Getting your hands dirty. Some people are so afraid to do that. It's crazy.
You got it. Oh, man.
It's like everybody nowadays wants
you got to put in the hustle.
Man, roll up your sleeve and go do some shit.
Yeah. I think everyone who makes it big in business has that story in the first 2-3 years where you just kind of have to throw down.
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about commercial, and mostly I'm talking about retail leasing versus residential leasing. When you're leasing out retail spaces, you often break up the rent into base rent plus triple net rent. For people who aren't familiar to this, triple net is common area maintenance, it's property taxes, and it's master building insurance. Common area maintenance is landscaping, it's maintaining the parking lot, it's sweeping. It may include security, it may include lighting, it may include plowing snow. Anything that requires that you have to spend to maintain the common areas is going to be billed back to the tenants in the form of triple net rents. The base rent is the rent that's actually coming to the landlord after expenses. So that's really going to be based on the market. There's not a whole lot you can do with that, but that's kind of the upside too. If you're small, you can still charge the same rate everyone else is charging. Qualifications are pretty stern to rent out a space in a retail shopping center. And it doesn't matter where you are in town, you're going to have very stern requirements. And the reason is that what landlords do in retail is they rent out an empty box. There is no store in there when they rent it out. It's up to the lessor, the tenant, to go in there and build out the space, to build out the store the way that they like it, the way that meets with their corporate details, corporate demands, and the way that meets the regulations for the county. They're going to be dealing with the public. And so there's a certain amount of regulation that comes into that. And these people are going to have to go get their own use and occupancy permit from the county, which means that they have to have a certain amount of business acumen. It can be really hairy for people who are doing it for the first time. So you're often looking for people who have done it before. Like I mentioned before, there's parking requirements. So before you lease to someone, you have to know how much parking they're going to require. And the county's going to have some kind of tabulation on that. They may be keeping a tabulation on your property to make sure that you have enough parking spaces for all the people that you're putting in there. If you put someone in and you can't offer them enough parking, then you're not holding up your end of the bargain as a landlord. So you have to be aware of that kind of stuff. On the upside, maintenance is very minimal. Tenants build out their own space. They build out their own electrical, their own plumbing. They may put in their own HVAC. Restaurants are putting in their own ovens, all their own tables, their own carpet, their own walls, wallpaper, paint. And so as a landlord, you don't have to maintain any of that. You never pay for a tenant's toilets. You never pay to fix their HVAC. That's all on them.
Nice.
So it really reduces your costs, right? The only thing you have to maintain is the roof, the parking lot, the landscaping, the exterior lighting, the kind of the common area stuff, and what's called the shell, the exterior of the building. You have to make sure everyone can get their utilities, that the utilities get to their unit. But once they get to the unit, it's on the tenant. Next one.
All right. So when you guys do that, just kind of thinking the difference between retail and commercial. With retail, it seems like a lot of people are really focused on the cosmetic and the kitchen and all that stuff. Whereas in commercial, it sounds like you can kind of really focus on where you're at for that specific business that you want to have. And you really don't have to do much other than, you give them the box. That's where the value is, the box and the location, really.
Yeah, that's all you do. And you charge a base rent, and the base rent's based on the market, and it's up to the business to earn enough income to afford it. So the risk for the landlord isn't that bad. It's just a matter of choosing the right tenants. But you can have a tenant come in and tear it up and fail to ever open for business and really damage your space. And then they just run out of money and they leave. And now you have to spend all this money to return that unit back to what's called a white box. And so you can lose. You can put tenants in there who fight you tooth and nail and refuse to move out. But it's not like when it comes to evicting a retail tenant, once again, there's no safety net. It's not like the courts are going to say, well, we can't throw this family with children out into the snow. They'll happily throw a tax accountant out in the snow. They'll happily throw a retail tenant out in the snow. It's not a residence. It's a business. And so no one has to live in the snow. Right?
Zero emotion. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it really is no safety net. So you have to know that when you go into this kind of thing. But the cool thing about leasing in this way, let me just get back to my little slide here, is that local demographics don't mean very much. And the reason is that the owners of your shops, they don't necessarily live in that neighborhood. They don't necessarily work at the places these other people do. They work for themselves. And so they're going to be coming from somewhere else. They're going to be investing a bunch of their own money. They're going to have good credit up front, and they're going to have good business acumen just to pass the U&O permitting process. So you wind up with pretty good performance no matter where it's located. The other thing is that the income for that family is going to be tied to their investment. So if they want to, have enough money for whatever they're trying to do, they need to keep the shop. If they're going to lose their house or lose their shop, they'd rather lose their house because they can always move into an apartment or move somewhere humble for a little while. But without the shop, they've got no income.
That's a crazy thought.
And so you end up having really long-term tenants. They spend a lot of money to move in, so the shortest lease term is 3 years. But the most common length would be 5 years for retail. But restaurants, it's not uncommon for restaurants to spend $250,000 just opening up a carry-out pizza joint. And so then they're going to ask for a 5-year lease with 2 5-year options, something like that. I had a big corporate tenant come in. They ripped my building down to the walls. They took off the roof. They took off the rear wall. They jackhammered the floor. They put in they basically rebuilt the entire building for their own uses. And they signed a 10-year lease with 2 10-year options. So 30-year contract on my side. But hey, I negotiated well. Or my partner did. Thank God for her. So it's a whole different thing. It's not like residential where you sign a 12-month lease and then you go month to month. These people are in there for long terms. So let's move on. How are we doing on time? How pressured should I feel on time here, guys?
We got about
Good.
5 minutes left.
5 minutes? Okay.
No, you got 10 minutes.
Okay. In commercial, there's no MLS. There's CoStar, there's LoopNet, but a lot of deals you're going to get are going to be passed to you without ever being listed anywhere. They're going to be off-market pocket deals. And so you're going to want to have a track record of success. And once you have that, you become what's called a preferred buyer. And then these pocket deals will come to you before they come to other folks. In the purchase process, you will either send or receive a letter of intent saying that you want to purchase. You'll give basic guidelines for the deal, especially the price that you want to offer. You're going to sign that. The seller's going to sign that. You both sign it. Doesn't mean anything. It just means you want to sell. Then the sales agreement happens. You have attorneys who negotiate all that stuff. You usually put in 30 days to physically inspect for yourself, for your own sanity. Make sure you're getting what you think you are. You do a survey in there and you do a title check. Once that comes through, then you do a 30-day financing contingency to make sure that you can get financed. After that, if everything lines up, that's your last opportunity to back out of the deal. Then you have 30 days to get your financing and close. I'm skipping a lot of stuff, but that's the basic format. So for me, I had 5 shopping centers. I bought them in 2009. I sold my dog in 2015. I lost about $40,000 a year on that property. I was so glad to see the backside of it. I sold it for exactly what I purchased it for, and I was damn happy I did. In 2017, I sold 2 of my break-even centers. I basically earned about 10 grand a year each on those guys, but I put in a lot of work to earn that 10 grand, so I didn't really want them. So I sold those exactly for what I paid for them. Happy to see the back end of those as well. I also sold one pretty good center in 2017, and I made a bunch of cash. So I had a huge pile of cash. Wasn't sure what to do with it. But what I did is I did a massive 1031. I traded one shopping center for 34 single-family homes in 4 different states. So I bought 15 homes in Jackson, Mississippi, 12 homes in Memphis, Tennessee, 4 homes in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and 3 houses in Hampton Roads. I had 45 days to identify 34 homes. And I did it, and every gray hair on my head arrived during that 45 days. I aged like 5 years.
Damn!
It was brutal. Twice I had the whole deal locked down, and the carpet got pulled out from under me. It came down to the last week when I finally nailed down my final $1 million purchase. And it's pretty good now. And then the last shopping center I refinanced during COVID back in April on a 10-year note. I did one of those funky exotic loans based on LIBOR. My financing broker told me it was the lowest rate he'd ever underwritten a retail shopping center at.
That's awesome.
Rates are crazy low right now. I'm locked in. There's no prepayment. I have to pay it for 10 years. But man, what a rate.
That's awesome.
So here's where I was going into COVID-19. I had one large strip mall near Washington, D.C. I have 49 single-family homes rented long-term in 5 states: Missouri, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Virginia. And I have one Airbnb duplex, happens to be in Hampton, with really great water views. So you tell me, going into COVID, is it better to have 5 strip malls in a city or 1 strip mall and 49 houses in 5 different states plus an Airbnb?
I'll take the second part of that statement.
Right, because retail really suffered during COVID. I lost a tenant. I had to give forbearance for tenants during COVID when they were shut down by the government. collections actually turned out pretty good, but the businesses are suffering. They're having a hard time getting clients through the door. So I'm having a hard time raising rents. It didn't go very well for retail, but my single family homes, I think all but one are paying their rent on time. And my Airbnb, believe it or not, did really great in the middle of COVID because it was in Hampton where people could escape from New York, New Jersey, these lockdown states, escape down from Massachusetts and take a breather somewhere where they could go outdoors and enjoy the beach. So my Airbnb did great this year.
That's
Nice.
awesome.
That's cool, man.
So once again, portfolio management, I always recommend diversify. And Alex knows it. I never stick with a single type of real estate. I start with retail. Now I'm in single family. Then I went to Airbnb. And now the tide has changed again. And I'm taking the current where I think it's the strongest. But I'm going to keep quiet on that one.
I was just about to ask. Nah, that's great, man. That's great. And one thing I'm noticing, so just real quick, because you're kind of you've been in both worlds. You've got all these single family homes now. What do you think of the factor of appreciation with this single family home portfolio you have and the commercial portfolio? Does that play any weight in that?
Absolutely. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my money and I'm putting it in one spot where the current's really strong. When that current gets slack, I'm going to move it somewhere else where the current is strong again. So you really need different asset classes to be able to play that game. Residential is on this kind of business cycle curve. It has ups and downs, and it's irrational. It doesn't necessarily depend on other market factors. Sometimes a neighborhood could just become popular, and all of a sudden everyone's moving there, and all of a sudden your real estate's worth a lot more, And so you want to be diversified. You want to be in a lot of different places. But when you catch that tide, you want to sell your single family and go to something else. Retail shopping centers are based on the rents that you can get in that market. They're going to change very slowly. They're going to change about 3% a year. It's going to be very steady. Businesses will pay their rent in a good market. Businesses will pay their rent in a bad market. And so it's not going through those business cycle fluctuations. So in a really good market, it's a good time to sell your houses and go into retail. In a really bad market, it's a good time to sell your retail and go into houses. This is kind of the game you play where you switch from one asset class to another to capture the appreciation where it is and leap away from where it's already happened.
Man, that's why we got you on here, Scott.
You got to be hopping.
Yeah, man.
Be hopping.
I love it. Well, I would say majority of our base is really people that are getting started. And so it's really hard not to be narrow-minded. I mean, you're like literally stuck on a specific strategy, right? And like very specific.
Oh, yeah.
And then eventually it's like, well, what happens after that? What happens after that? And you've kind of been in this game a long time. It's cool to see the way that like, all right, well, I got these shopping centers and I'm done.
Right.
It's okay. What's the next stage to continue business and to continue growing? Hopefully, Do you feel like you have grown as the years have gone? Or do you feel like you've just kind of moved things around?
Absolutely. To me, it's always a game of figuring out what the next great investment is. And there's always something great. Kiyosaki says, when the market's great, I earn money. And when the market's terrible, I earn money.
Yeah.
And when you understand real estate, you can do that. You just have to know what you're looking at and know how to play it. For the guys who are starting out, what I would say is you don't want to start out doing this small time puddle jumping, making just a little bit here, a little bit there stuff. Try to figure out how to make a big move early because you're only going to have this energy while you're young. But for those first 2 or 3 years, you got to do what I did. You got to jump into the deep end. You got to work your butt off and make it happen on your own because you're going to learn a lot and you're going to make a lot more money. So if I were somebody like that right now, if I was just starting out, I would be looking at Airbnb rental arbitrage. I'll be looking at renting a 5-bedroom house just for me and my girlfriend, and then renting out the other 4 rooms on Airbnb. There are ways to play that right now where you can make a bunch of money. Other than that, it's always a good idea to learn as much as you can, learn from other people, and just be aggressive and keep looking and don't give up.
Awesome. I want to go through some of these questions with you. People have been writing here while we've been talking, just kind of play catch up.
Awesome.
I'm going to pull off the slideshow real quick, or actually, Ash, can you do that?
All right. So it says Ryan Smith was writing earlier where he wrote, what would you say the average cap rate is in commercial Chesapeake real estate in Virginia? He said he was looking at an office building for $850. I don't know if you can do it.
I don't know much about office. All I know is it's a really scary thing to move into.
Okay.
But
is that because of now, or is that because of just any time?
It's because of COVID. Okay. Because everyone has essentially learned at this point that they can work from home. Everyone's already set up their home office. Everyone's become accustomed to working separately. And so I don't think the readoption of office space is going to happen very quickly. The people who are going to do it are going to be smaller offices who want a presence in a market just to show everyone they exist, like a doctor, a dentist, an attorney, something like that. I think they'll come back. Real estate investors probably buy their own building. Yeah, stuff like that. Other necessary functions like gas stations, barbers and beauty, convenience stores, that's always going to be there. Office building, man, I'd be concerned. Here's the other thing about office. In retail, I didn't have to maintain plumbing. In office buildings, those toilets tend to be in the hallways. They are up to the landlord. You're going to have to vacuum. When you get a new tenant, it's going to be on you to build out for them. So in retail, they build themselves out. In office, you have to build out for them. Then they only stay in business for 6 months and they're gone. What are you going to do now? Build out for the next guy? Yeah. So office is scary.
That's a heavy build cost or heavy cost over top of whatever you're already paying.
It's a lot of landlord costs and a lot of landlord involvement.
It's a big difference from what you're explaining on the other retail. So it's
strip mall has no interior hallways. It has no public restrooms. If you run it right, it has no landlord square footage at all.
Nice.
And yeah, so you don't manage anything. You manage parking lot lighting.
Yeah.
No one needs to call you and wake you up in the middle of the night because the light's out in the parking lot.
A buddy of mine had a few of those, and he was like, I said something about it because I knew he's the landlord. And I was like, dude, that's a landlord's responsibility. He's like, no, it's not. It's like, that's the inside of the building. I got the outside of the building.
That's right. That's right.
Well, that's funny, man. Like on the residential side, you want to, like, if you can find a duplex that has all the utilities separated, people don't think about it, but it's such a huge savings at the end of the day.
Totally.
So if you can build your model out on commercial to keep you out here, and you guys figured out in there, then that's gravy.
It's basic value add to individually meter every single tenant. And even if the landlord pays it, you still bill it back to the tenants one way or the other.
It's definitely a good investment for sure.
Yeah.
Marcus Ivory said, how do you work your net lease agreements, or do you even use them? And I think you touched on that when you were talking on one of your slides.
Yeah. So there's based on the prior 12 months. When you're doing a new lease with a tenant, you just bring up your books. You do it into all the different categories that I mentioned before. You can be super clear to your tenants about what they're paying for. You don't want it to be too much. You want to kind of be aware of what people are paying next door, in the area. What's the market average triple net cost, and try to keep it there. And so you have to manage your own expenses so you don't, mishandle your own management for the benefit of the tenants. You want to keep those costs low. But yeah, it's just based on the prior 12 months. And then what you do is every year at the end of the year in December, you do your books for the year and you even it out with all the tenants. If they have paid too much, you might owe them something. If they've underpaid, they might owe you something. So that's how you want to arrange it. Make sure to undercharge them. Because you don't want to have to pay them everybody back. That was up.
Nice.
Yeah. But the other thing you can include in there, by the way, is reserves for repairs. So like my shopping center is 18 units. We put away $25,000 a year for reserves so that we can redo the parking lot when we need to, redo parking lot lighting, make sure the roofs are in good condition. That kind of stuff actually the tenants pay for through reserves in the triple nets. Mm-hmm.
Nice. Okay. One guy wrote over here. He was like, when we asked you, you were like, "Shh, I'm not gonna say what I'm doing." He's like, "Come on, man, give me the goods." Hey, man,
I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
I'll give you a hint. I'm under contract in Hampton Roads right now.
Oh, so close.
On commercial.
The Rose represent.
On commercial. Yeah.
Nice.
What city?
Nope.
Oh, yeah. That'll give it away right there. Yep.
Nice.
I know, man, but I'm not going to give you up like that.
Another guy said,
Thanks, dude.
of passive syndications in mid-income residential apartments. What do you think of passive syndications in mid-income residential apartments? I don't even know what that means.
A syndicated purchase on
Wait a minute.
probably a 50 to 100 unit.
I think we lost him. He fell off.
He didn't like that question. He bailed.
Man, he's like, I'm out this piece.
Oh, that's a Pandora's box. I'm out.
Yeah, we got to get him back.
Yeah, man, no, Scott's awesome.
These are good. These are good questions. Guys, keep these questions coming over here. We're going to try to hang out for a few more minutes. Usually we, try to shut it down at 9 o'clock, going a little bit longer, try to help you guys get these answers you're looking for. We'll get Scott back on here. Please, right over in the comment section, let us know what questions you have, and we're going to try to get these answered by Scott. And if you do come in, please come in over on the letting the what is this thing? This group that we're using, StreamYard. Let them know who it is so we can talk to you. So we've seen Green Drake. We saw Deep Sea JB, Marcus Ivory, Ryan Smith. So Owen had a question over here. We'll wait for we'll hopefully be able to get Steve back on here and be able to answer these questions for you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We really appreciate it. Hopefully this stuff is helpful. If you guys would, leave in the comments. Let us know. There he is.
There he is.
Cool. All right. So let's see if we can go back to that one for a hot second. We lost you right at the end. What do you think of passive syndications in mid-income residential apartments?
Probably
what I think is CYA. Be careful.
50.
Make sure you have an attorney read that agreement, because usually you can buy a small apartment complex yourself and get treated as 100% owner. The minute you go passive in a syndication, someone's going to be eating part of your lunch. And I've seen some really bad deals out there. I've been offered some stuff that just almost turns my stomach at how much money that syndicator is taking out of my pocket. I would say right now, I'm not in any syndications, and I've spoken to a lot of people about it. I have 2 business partners, and I think it's too many. I love them both, but I wouldn't want any more, and in syndication, it's just too many people. It's a different investment. If you're say you're kind of at the end of your investing life and you just want to invest and ignore it and make a meager return, yeah, you can do that. But there's a lot better deals out there. You could go out and buy yourself an Airbnb and make 4 or 5 times the money. So
okay.
Why would you do it?
Okay, cool. Hopefully that answers whoever that person was. Again, guys, if you're joining us at StreamYard, let's try to see if we can get that so we can see who you are and hopefully answer it for you. Vanessa wrote, are you trying to do anything in the Raleigh area?
I am not. No, the prices here aren't great. There's just too much money here in Raleigh. Okay. So hard to make return.
The next question we had was Deep Sea JB said, who's responsible for putting the white box back in place after the retail tenant leaves? What sort of security deposit do you get from tenants?
So security deposit depends on the credit check. Most of the time it's a 1-month security deposit. I've heard a lot of people do first month and last month, or 2-month security deposit. When I have people who don't have good credit, an alternative for having good credit could be 3 months of security deposit. but usually it's 1 month. It's up to me to put the white box back in place. The tenants just have to return it to the same condition it was in when they got it. So if it had decent carpet, they keep the decent carpet. If it had neutral tone in the walls, they keep the neutral tone in the walls. They just can't have holes in the walls.
Okay. Hey, I've got a question for you on that same note. You were talking, you got a pizza shop putting in $250,000.
Yeah.
How is most of the money that you're getting coming in? Is it a lot of business loans, or is it kind of, how you see?
You mean the pizza shop owner?
Yeah. Somebody that's got $250,000 to invest into. How are they coming up with that money? And
so often what you'll have is one group who's in the business of creating new locations, and they'll have investors who come and purchase the locations from them after they put it in place. So they'll spend all that money up front to build it out, and then they'll sell it to an investor who's buying the business. They'll probably do some kind of down payment and then a payment plan over years to keep the location. So that's a whole different business model. You got to be bankrolled pretty solid to do that. Yeah, but I know somebody who puts in oil change places. He buys vacant lots. He gets a small business loan to build a new oil change place. He has to put in about $500,000 up front to make it happen. And then he writes himself a lease to be the owner of the business there. And then he sells the commercial real estate with a tenant in place, and he gets about $1 million to sell it. So he doubles his money every year by building new oil change places and gets a business for free.
Wow.
I like it, man. That's pretty slick.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But
all you need is $500,000 to do it. No big deal.
Yeah, no.
You got to know that niche and be willing to take that.
Little change. No big deal. All right, we have one. We're going to go back up here. Owen Ali wrote, how do you pick a market before you start looking for deals in that area? Multifamily apartments is what he's referring to.
Yeah, man, pick like 10 and then go in the market and find out when you're right. The sad news is you don't know till you try, man. You can look at cap rates all day long. You can look at deals, but I'm telling you, the stuff that actually gets to LoopNet and CoStar has already been filtered through a lot of hands. So you have to pick your markets first. Then I would say when I was doing it, what I did is I went for like a month in each market. I called everyone I could. I talked the best game I could. I looked as professional as possible. I just gave them my resume. And then I found out what the deals were. And it's pretty rough there because you have a lot of big money out there in apartments.
Get out of here, man.
Well, apartments have been really popular for like 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah.
You've been in all these different fields. I know, like, we always talk about, like, you don't want to be in a war zone. You don't want to be in these, like, really, like, is that seem pretty much like most investments, or is that like, can commercial kind of get by wherever kind of thing?
Commercial involves a lot of different classes. You can have retail, office, multifamily, churches, funky stuff, airports and graveyards and oil wells. It's constantly in fluctuation. So as long as you're looking around and just keep your nose to the trail, you're going to figure out where to go. But it's hard to. What was your original question?
Well, like, I'm trying to say this as a realtor, I have to be really careful, but like, you don't, like, when you're buying residential real estate as an investor, you're trying not to buy in war zones and that kind of thing.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Okay. As residential, you've got families living there, and people don't want to get shot or something. With retail, I'm trying to figure out how I can get around this without putting my stuff up and getting called by Depot tomorrow. But with retail, commercial, with the commercial side, can you be a little bit more lenient on where you're at, because it's really based on the income that you can, bring in, as opposed to, if you're comfortable walking your dog.
Yeah, because when it comes to retail, you're even in I mean, you call them war zones. That's even in you know areas where people don't have very good credit. The people who are renting out retail are going to have good credit. They don't necessarily live in that neighborhood, and there are wealthy, good credit people who know how to operate a business in those areas, be safe, charge the right amounts, give people the service they want, and they run a nice business. I have always found that I got better returns and did better business in the, low credit score areas than I did in the high credit score areas. And the shopping center that I did have that was in like, I don't know what's the opposite of war zone, in the like peacenik happy land. My returns were terrible. Peacenik happy land. I don't know, what would you call it? What's the opposite of war zone? Returns were horrible. My tenants were constantly at each other's throats.
It was just too expensive.
There was a lot of money in that rent, and they had high demand, and there wasn't much space. There were a lot of parking arguments. I had tenants fighting with knives in the parking lot. I swear to God.
Dude, it's going down. All right, let's move on to another one. Trico Property says, I'm looking at, we're going to do like, let's just say it's 9, 10. So let's do like 2 or 3 more questions. Are you good?
Yeah.
Scott? Okay. I'm looking at a portfolio which has 1 room salon type spot included. Any basic insight to consider? Income to cost, etc.
I guess it has 1 room salon type spot included. Any basic insight to consider? What I would say about salons is salons are kind of a dime a dozen. You can always rent out a salon, and with the right person, that person will attract their own clientele. They may even come for 15 minutes around just to go to this one salon if you get the right person. What you want to look for is someone with credit, someone who's done this before. It's always good to have someone who's going to come with other people to be in the salon with them, not just like a solo operator on their own, but yeah, I'm going to come and my 2 buddies are going to come with me. You're going to want to see that they have enough investment capital to open up, spruce the place up, do some advertising. Income to cost. I'm not sure what to say about income to cost. You want to get your cap rate right. And it's not going to be super easy to raise the rents, but I'll tell you, unless it's in so you want to be in an area where women are going to want to come to get their haircut. If it's in an area where women don't want to park their cars and walk and go get their haircut, then you're going to have trouble with the salon. Otherwise, if it's in an area where women feel comfortable doing that, then you'll probably be okay. You'll always have a tenant. And it's one of those things that you can't outsource to Amazon. So I'd say just get your cap rate right. Make sure that you check the credit of your tenant. And if they give you too much hassle, kick them out, because there's another one around the corner.
Nice. All right, let's do 2 more. Brian Mathis wrote, what's the best advice that you received that you can share for somebody like himself that's just starting out? Take yourself back 10 years, smack your younger self. What would you say?
Yeah, I'd say listen to Shakespeare back there on slide 1.
Nice.
You got to watch the tide and understand when things are shifting, when things are being undervalued, when you can buy something that's going to be valuable down the road. Right now with COVID is a flood time. We're seeing huge changes happening in the market. Retail is suffering. Office is suffering. All these things are going to be playing themselves out over years. This isn't going to just like happen in the next few months. This is going to be going on for the next 1.5 to 2 years at the minimum. So what I'd say is there's always a deal around the corner. Don't get too hung up on a single deal. Keep looking until you find one that really works for you, that's going to change your situation. And always try to step it up. Don't keep it low. Don't stay in the shallows. Go for something that's going to make a change for you.
Nice. All right. So the last one I'm going to go over here. This was Deep Sea JB. It says, is there any type of retailer that you would never rent to?
Strip clubs.
Nice.
And I'm serious.
Wrong clientele.
Strip clubs, like for instance, if you have a shopping center with like 10 tenants and you put a strip club in the middle of it, all the other 9 tenants are going to be affected by that. People are going to be turned off. They're going to think you're seedy. They're not going to want to go in there. Women are not going to feel comfortable walking to your salon. So, things that sketch people out like that, like strip clubs, not a good deal. Like a really boisterous nightclub can be great if they're respectful and they're far enough away and, it's not a problem for your other tenants. But if they are a problem, if there are people hanging out in the parking lot and harassing other businesses, that can be an issue. So really you have to think about tenant mix a lot with that stuff. Private clubs, nightclubs, strip clubs, you really got to think about it because once you sign that lease, they could be in there for 5 years,
Good answer. Last thing I want to ask, and I hope everybody appreciates this, is what do you want to give as a closing remark for all this information you've shared tonight, which I thought was awesome. Thank you again for doing it. But what would you like the people that are watching tonight, have a big takeaway from your getting in to where you're at now, experience-wise? What would you want somebody to walk away with as their big takeaway from tonight?
Come on.
That's tough. I feel like I've answered this question more than once. I just keep reading that Shakespeare passage and thinking about what it means. You want to make a big change. Do not settle for anything that's going to tie you up, cause you a lot of work, and not get you anywhere when you're done. Don't sit around letting other people dictate how the terms of your deal are going to be. Stay active, stay smart, and when it stops looking like a good deal, move on. Because there's other deals around the corner, and Hampton Roads is a great market. There are great opportunities there.
Nice.
Nice, man. Well, I think that's awesome, man. I think when you started with that Shakespeare quote, you had me. I was like, done. So I don't know, man. I think the idea of moving with the flow of things is great, but it's difficult. But you've got a very hands-on approach and a very I don't know. I mean, like it's not something that's just going to stop. You're going to keep changing, and I love that you're saying go in there and be aggressive. That's something we don't hear a lot. I don't say a lot to my clients, honestly, just mainly because I'm super risk adverse when I'm representing my clients. But I think coming from an investor, I think it's a great piece of advice to say, man, go out there and make that big move, because that's where the big returns are going to come from.
I think you want to scare yourself a little bit every time. You want to be excited every time, and you want to scare yourself a little every time.
Nice. I like that.
That way you're always stepping it up, and just keep stepping it up. And eventually you're going to be stepping up pretty high, and you're like, whoa, is it really me doing this? But you look at the numbers, you look at your research, what you're doing makes sense. You look at the people that are coming along with you and checking with them to make sure you're not crazy. And after a decade of doing that, heck, you're somewhere.
Nice.
Awesome. Cool. Guys, I think we should probably call it a night, man. That was great, Scott. We thank you so much for coming on. And,
hey, my pleasure. Let me just interrupt you. Thank you so much for Hopportunity. Back when I was in the area, I loved coming to the meetings. I really appreciate Alex. I really appreciate Shawn. I really appreciate Ashley and Vanessa and Cameron, all you guys. We're so welcoming to me. And we had such a good time killing beers back in the day. And then COVID hit and ruined the whole party. But I'm glad we're still doing it. And go ahead, take it away. Thank you, Hopportunity. That's all.
Yeah, well, Scott, stay on here, man. Okay. Before we cut out of here, we always say what we're drinking. So I'm going to start us off. I got the Dogfish Head 90-minute IPA.
Nice. That's a good one.
I like that one.
Cam, what do you got?
I got a Tropic Canyon.
Oh,
You like a little citrus in the beer? This is a good one, man. I just stumbled across this one. It's out of Maryland. I don't know. I like it.
good stuff. Scott, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking a brisk Pilsner from Brewery Bavana here in Raleigh.
Nice.
I went to the good old special Norm New Realm, the Hoplandia IPA.
Nice.
That's a good one. Well, I want to thank you again for being on here, man. Thanks for taking the time to join us, share all this stuff with these people that have joined us and taking the time to spend with us this evening. Thank you so much for the guys and ladies and gentlemen that have joined us tonight. I appreciate it so much for taking the time and hanging out with us. Hopefully you learned something, and please go check us out at that Hopportunity page on Facebook and on the YouTube channel. And click that like button, subscribe, and see all that information when it comes over there. One last thing before we roll out of here, though. I want you guys to learn who Cam Peters is. Let's talk about that. Cam runs our Peninsula chapter as far as how we are, what we're doing when this thing was live. I think he's over there. So, Cam, talk about who you are, what you do, and what you've been doing with Hopportunity and how all this came about.
Yeah, so I would say, just being honest, it's been a year, maybe a year and a half ago, we were getting together after Hopportunity, right, down on the south side, shooting the breeze about what the night was like and this and that. And I was like, hey, why don't we ever move this over to Peninsula? And you guys were like, well, let's go. You got that? You live over there, right? So you got that? And I'm like, yeah, I got that.
You just signed yourself up.
That's how it was going. It wasn't any big mastermind, right? But I know there's a lot of guys and gals that don't like to cross the tunnels and whatever. I do it all the time, so I've gotten used to it. But I get it. There's certain South Side folks that don't want to go to the Peninsula, and certain Peninsula folks that don't want to go to the South Side, right? And so we thought that made it for enough of a base, right, for us to do this up on the Peninsula side. And so we started that last year, and then COVID kind of killed it and made it to where it was really hard to do. So we did a few. It was successful. Yeah, it just tanked it. But we did a few, and it was super successful, and everybody was appreciating it. So we're looking to start that back up in 2021. And I guess we'd like to hear from you guys, right? Are you ready to go back to in-person events? What are your concerns? What are your thoughts? Because obviously we don't want to do this, and then
when will you be ready?
All the guys that show up is the guys you see on the screen. I mean, let's be honest. We're still going to drink beer. We're still going to have great real estate conversations. But we'd like to do that with you. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's it. We're looking to start it back up on Peninsula for sure, Southside as well, and just kind of looking to hear some feedback. Like to get that going.
Awesome.
Nice.
So yeah, guys, let us know. Click over there on that Facebook group. Join us. Give us some comments. Tell us about what you thought about Scott and what he shared with you guys tonight as far as the information and like all that. Like, man, this is real shit right here, guys. Like, this is why we started this. It all started from just having a beer and talking, and it turned into this killer group where people come in and learn. And there's not a pitch at the end of it, like, go to the back and buy this. Nobody wants that shit. That's why this group started. So you get to come here, learn stuff, and really go and put it into work. So again, I want to thank Scott so much for taking the time to be with us, and then share all this knowledge, man. It's awesome. I learned some stuff that I didn't even know about. It was really cool, and that's why I enjoy these things. So thanks, guys, for joining us. Check us out at those spots, and we'll see you on the next one. And thank you, ladies. I know you're all back there. You come up here on the screen and say hi to everybody. But for Ashley and Vanessa, always making sure that this thing goes off somewhat without a hitch.
Well, let's conclude this with some Julius Caesar. On such a full sea are we now afloat, and we must take the current when it serves or lose our ventures. I think that is awesome, man. Thank you, Scott.
Right on.
Thanks, everybody. We'll be here next month.
See y'all next time.
Peace.
Later.